Yellow, Brian from the channel Brian here, and in the tradition of franchises slapping "the" onto their latest movie as an easy way to help it stand out, I am gonna review Matt Reeves' The Batman. This is the latest Batman reboot, the third iteration of this character since the turn of the century, without even mentioning the many animated series, movies, and AAA budget video games, more than demonstrating basically everything you could do with the character. Realistically, what the heck is a filmmaker supposed to do that's not just a regurgitation of already tried and tested Batman iconography? I don't know, and neither does Matt Reeves. The Batman redefines absolutely nothing about these characters, but at the same time is not so stale you could write it off as just another one. The Dark Knight is the obvious trendsetter with Batman media now, forever marrying the gothic darkness and alleged realism to his legacy. I love that film, of course, but it gets frustrating when, after all these years, we still can't seem to separate ourselves from it. Paul Dano's The Riddler is on one wavelength the entire time, and it's that scene where Joker's got the guy in a meat locker, like on the news. We keep recycling the same online article nonsense about actors method acting to become the spookiest Batman villain of all, with a patronizing transparency at trying to manufacture the same phenomenon Ledger's Joker was. It is not an impressive thing anymore for an actor to be like, whoa, I'm freaking out, I'm like a real crazy person, and do nothing else. But if you can just accept a little treading water, there is plenty to be said in this film's favor. Reeves' investment in the race for Batman to be even darker and even grittier is apparent, but not as infantile as the usual things I liked as a kid have to grow up with me because I still want to play with my toys fare. It's so dialed in, I at times asked myself if the Batman should even count as a blockbuster. I mean, it's about Batman, so yes, people are gonna treat it like one, but also no, if you judge it on, most of the content in the film. The lone car chase with the Penguin is the only action scene that's not 30 seconds of Batman punching some token thugs. Marvel movies, and even the good DC ones like Shazam and The Suicide Squad, are fusions of action, comedy, drama, and varyingly tactless social commentary in a pinch. Reeves says f*** all that and made a hard-nosed procedural serial killer film that just so happens to star a walking Kevlar suit with a young Gerard Way stuffed inside. Pattinson's grungy, army surplus chic Batman, the clang of his combat boots brought to the front of the sound mix, is still the first since Keaton's to be pulled down to the level of human even remotely. His performance is great. Most of the performances were. I even liked John Turturro playing Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. Reeves is leagues more committed to his chosen genre than, say, Captain America Winter Soldier, using espionage thrillers as a peripheral to formula. It wasn't until Joker that, for all its faults, we saw a comic book movie commit the diasporic act of attempted prestige. At the crossroads of a post-Avengers Endgame world, threatening the superhero genre with something the least bit real is enough to shake Marvel to their core, because that's something they're steadfastly against offering. The selected genre is a natural fit for Reeves' aspirational grittiness, because, before all else, damn, this movie looks good. The Batman cost the same amount of money to make as Black Widow, and actually has something to show for it in its presentation. The production design and cinematography are fantastic and deservedly show themselves off. Gotham City is this massive faux Art Deco stand-in for New York. This is the best Gotham has ever looked, with infinitely more character than its counterpart in Joker, the two films even tackling similar themes of inequity and neglect, except Batman blows Joker out of the water. Whatever highs and lows this film has, the Batman's greatest strength is its thematic consistency. It tells a story about corruption that is all too familiar to the real world. A festering anger beneath sheets of grime that will never move because nothing changes. As Batman channels his rage and vengeance into fighting fire with fire, fear against fear, eventually his confrontations with the Riddler unravel that attitude as unproductive. Your everyday thug might retreat from dark alleys because of the mere thought Batman might be lurking in the shadows, but is that fear really working on those responsible for Gotham's problems? Robert Pattinson's Batman is narratively inexperienced compared to his contemporaries. Even Batman Begins treats Christian Bale's transformation into Batman as some kind of grand, symbolic manifest destiny, but in his inexperience, Batman here is reaffirmed by the film constantly as unforgiving and vengeful. The Batmobile's engine revving sounds like the film's about to burst a forehead vein in rage. Batman slowly leering toward the Penguin, rain coming down so hard it's probably cracking the pavement, explosion in the background, Michael Giacchino telling his horn section the quietest player is going to have their family executed. It's comically edgy, and I love it. But doesn't that all sum it up? You're never going to mistake this for a David Fincher film, no matter how many comparisons the internet draws to them. While I appreciate the attempt, whatever Reeves had in mind clearly was more audacious and anti-blockbuster than some of the compromises on display here would demonstrate. The mystery aspects of the film being a point of focus is undercut when bits and pieces of it are so telegraphed that I'm figuring them out before the supposed world's greatest detective. The people and clues Batman finds always seem to point him back to the Penguin's iceberg lounge. Somebody goes in and out of there to find the next lead about 5 times. If the Batman really wanted to be like a David Fincher film, Batman would have not caught the Riddler at all, and the dissatisfaction of failing to save the day would be another notch in his obsessive behavior. But a superhero film is never going to end like Zodiac. The Riddler works for the intangible Fincher-inspired villain, but is a bit of a mess when you learn anything about his character, which is to say nothing of his Kanye on a bad day inspired wardrobe. I get the end point of his expository monologue revealing his backstory, however the crux of his character that's given to us here is caught in a tepid word soup right before he spends the rest of the film squealing and whimpering because, hey, that's what crazy people do. Ooh. The real climax of the film this proceeds is textbook insert Batman third act here gobbledygook. And it's such a disconnect with Riddler's intent and goals up until this moment. The aforementioned thematic consistency just takes a break for this portion of the film for Batman to punch some people on catwalks. The second the action stops, it gets back on track, but it's never convincing Reeves isn't fighting tooth and nail against what the conventions of the genre demand of him. It is not the worst thing in the world if the Batman is nothing but a well-executed interpretation of the comics, but with aspirations much higher than that, it's okay to assess whether it accomplishes them. Because if you are coming from an angle looking for the pop culture cues Batman's known for with a spectacular budget, this is gonna rock your world. As a fan of the animated series, the film accurately captures the morose noir and rich network of characters which were so integral to the show's success. This is the only Batman film to genuinely try a less is more approach with its whole chest. I'm only harping on the minute details of story because the Batman has earned its way in presentation, performance, and filmmaking to where that's the territory I have to go to in order to complain. I have some basic miscellaneous gripes about, like, how does Batman have Robert Pattinson's incredibly distinct jawline and yet nobody can figure out who he is? Kind of like Spider-Man Homecoming, there is very little explanation or backstory for any of our characters. I mean, I'm not in a rush to see Thomas and Martha Wayne die again, but it's still an inevitably dated example of the comic book movie snake eating its own tail. And for all the attempted realism in this, Batman should be dead like 5 times. Spoiler ahead, so here's when I'm done. The Joker is in this film, and he's played by Barry Keoghan. The Batman has a small stunt casting problem. Like, Colin Farrell as the Penguin wasn't bad, but you could have cut your makeup budget in half and just got a real character actor to play him, like, just as well. Same with Dano as the Riddler. His voice and face are only shown for maybe a handful of scenes in this 3-hour film. The pop culture zeitgeist has a very limited idea of what to do with talented actors once they're popular. Barry Keoghan is the Joker. The Joaquin Phoenix was also the Joker. And William Dafoe, he wants to be the Joker. It's like the only way people have of channeling their appreciation for a given craft is imagining how it would fit into a machine-made mold of familiarity. This is a much bigger problem than the Batman, but once again, the fatigue of the genre seeps in through any cracks, no matter how microscopically small. I think I've said my piece about this movie. To Reeves' credit, the lengthy runtime, almost 3 hours, feels far shorter than that. It's hard to believe this is only an hour shorter than the Snyder Cut. If superhero movies are at a crossroads, I think one of them leading to these kinds of movies, intentionally denying themselves a little to create a new little niche, makes the world of movies a far more interesting place than it would be without it. So, congratulations to Matt Reeves and the Batman for leading that charge in a movie that satisfyingly represents Batman's character. I'm thinking a strong 6 out of 10 for this film. Realistically, it could move up to a 7, but let's keep it at a 6 for now. So hey, did you like this movie more than me or less than me? Well, if you care to, please tell me. And, as always, if you like not only words but the way I arrange and then say them, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to me, Brian from the channel Brian. Both will help me with the algorithm. Thank you, and goodbye.